welcome. George Lane. We can, yeah. Your background is in what, George? And just so the group knows, we received an award from Cal OES looking at kind of new emerging technologies for standoff detection. So we're working with major ports in California, San Diego, Long Beach, Oakland, San Francisco, Phoenicia, whatever, to help them with proactive risk identification so you don't send people into a dangerous situation. Standoff, yeah. I'm taking liberties, George, on my interpretation. Cool, thank you, George. Ahmed. Thank you, Ahmed. How about Carl? Cool, welcome. Peter Martelli. Wonderful. And was that a hand in our cell raised to help organize advisors meeting? Cool. Jennifer, welcome. You want to do a quick little introduction for the group? No? Would you like to do a quick introduction for the group? We're doing introduction. It's your opportunity to inject high reliability organization concepts into Home Depot. Okay, did I miss anybody on the WebEx? Yep. All right, I think we have everyone. So with that, Alexander, would you like to read the little intro on the center and then do our speaker introduction?
All right, before we go, some background on our center. The Center for Catastrophic Risk Management was founded in 2005 in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. We're a global group of applied researchers, academia, government, and industry who have come together to develop pragmatic solutions for the complex, multi-jurisdictional, messy problems of the 21st century. We conduct fundamental research on catastrophic risk through empirical data. By identifying and engaging target teams, expertise are uniquely tailored to each challenge. CPRM aims to help make the inspectors manageable. Brief introduction. Scott has focused his career on commercial insurance solutions relating to risk associated with professional and technology services, cyber, media, intellectual property. As an underwriter for Zurich Insurance, he had a unique view on the inner workings of risk management and finance for the largest tech and healthcare companies in the Western region. In 2016, Scott joined Science, a startup that evaluates cyber risk for insurers. Key technology is an engine that collects cyber exposure data at scale across the internet, correlates it to particular companies, and models it at the individual company level and across called cyber fault lines in today's digital economy. To support insurers' resiliency, Scott led the development of scenario reporting requirements for Lloyd's insurers. The public version of this was an emerging risk report called Cyber Risk Decoded. Subsequently, we worked with AM Best, the rating agency focused on insurer solvency, to model potential cyber losses for particular insurers. Scott has a bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Colorado at Boulder and an MBA from the University of California, Berkeley. Any questions related to that?
All right, I think it's Scott. So let me plug that computer in so there's going to have a frequency at some point. Don't mind me.
Perfect.
Your show.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for sharing your time. I feel almost not qualified to be here, but I look forward to speaking a little bit about 10 years of experience in the commercial insurance industry. Personally, I'm just always looking for ways to cover what I'm doing professionally and the effort I'm putting into these things is something that's more meaningful. And I just love being associated with the University of California. So I'm really honored to be invited and to speak with you today. The topic of our conversation is about cyber risk and about sort of the insurance world, cyber quantification work for these sorts of things. I thought I'd talk about a couple overarching concepts and then the session be interactive as is helpful. Start off talking about the insurance marketplace and some loss examples that I'm familiar with. Because I'm still in the commercial space and the competitive space, I'm going to be talking about things that are a little bit old, but I think the lessons still apply. So I'm questions about things that are more recent, if you like. I'll talk a little bit about how insurers is doing risk management around cyber risk. And then I'm just going to end with a couple of topics that I think are broadly relevant to risk management that I've been interested in personally and kind of trying to work into my professional world.
Yes, it's over here. So I can move that closer? Or we might even be able to turn on the speakers if I know how to do that.
Put it on.
Yeah. Well, I have to be connected to my laptop. But yeah, I'm a talker though.
I can try to project more. I guess I didn't realize I was speaking into that device 10 feet away.
It's supposed to do sound amplification.
I'll try to project a little bit more. Are you able to hear me now? All right. Fantastic. Thank you for mentioning that. So starting out with the cyber insurance marketplace, these slides are a little heavy, so I'll just sort of talk them through. And then let me know at the end of this, the 2 slides, see if anybody has questions. So the cyber insurance marketplace really started leading up to Y2K. Everybody's very worried that there's something about how we're only capturing two numbers. Obviously, you don't know what Y2K is. We're only capturing 2 digits. We're moving from 99 to 00. The world's going to end. So insurers began auditing what is our exposure to this starting in 96, thinking about how can we remove any potential liabilities that might happen, anything bad that happens as a result of this known issue. So they're looking to exclude cyber risk, anything that has to do with this Y2K issue from all the policies that they write, and then sort of creating cyber insurance as a dedicated solution to the exclusion that they created on other lines. Coverage started out really simple, third-party liability, which is someone suing your enterprise. So that's what the coverage is designed to do. Throughout the 2000s, obviously Y2K kind of ended up being done. Maybe it could have gone either way, I don't know. But through the 2000s, seeing more and more breaches and more privacy breach notice laws. That is, if a corporation loses sensitive information, your social security number, credit card information, things of this nature, there's an affirmative obligation of that enterprise to advise those that are impacted about it. Starts out in Massachusetts and California. It's now virtually required in every state, maybe one or two laggards, but that's not the case. The cyber insurance market starts growing quite a bit, and the coverage grows quite a bit as well. So we're adding things like these first-party notification costs. So if my enterprise is breached and sensitive records of our customers or employees are lost as a result, then all those are called first-party costs, or costs that I bear to try to remedy that situation. And so coverage is expanding to include those sorts of things, include extortion, digital asset replacement if your digital assets are damaged, and obviously regular fines and penalties, business interruption, which is happening a lot of enterprises are seeing actual tangible financial loss from a result from a interruption in IT systems. But there's a lack of standardization in almost every facet of cyber risk. So how is it underwritten? What does the coverage look like? How is it priced? None of these things are standard across markets, and it makes it very complicated for new buyers to decide whether they want to purchase this thing, how should they approach it. So it was a rather complex purchase decision. I'll say, I got 2010 to present, there became a lot more standardization. So these days in the market, you can talk about what standard cyber insurance covers, and there's a sort of universally agreed set of things that it does cover, and universally agreed things that it usually does not cover. So there's much more standardization, and between that and all the cyber incidents, we've seen a lot of growth in this market, averaging 30% per year. They say it's about a $4 billion annual market for the premiums paid each year to transfer these cyber liability exposures. Of course, the premium grows as the losses grow. So I'll talk through several claims examples, but we're seeing lots of losses. And just to note there's one insurance carrier in a market of about 150 insurers that are writing cyber liability coverage. Just one carrier paid 3,000 claims for that means that there's cyber incidents and there's cyber incidents with financial loss greater than or retention or deductible of usually starts at $5,000. It means actually something happens to these companies. It wasn't just a minor incident. And I've got like a little pie chart for that carrier, the kinds of things that are causing loss: hacks, malware, accidental disclosure of information, social engineering. Somebody clicked on a link, and then or they might have accidentally wired money. Someone says, "Oh, I'm the CEO and I want $1 million for something. Please wire it to this address," and then it turns out it wasn't the CEO. It was someone started as an imposter, pretending to be him, and he was handling social engineering. Obviously, losing devices, things of that nature. So it's pretty widespread, the sorts of incidents that cause cyber liability losses.
What's an accidental disclosure?
Accidental disclosure. A health system could send out a mailer. This has happened more than a couple of times. And in that clear section of the envelope, they will post your social security number by accident, like the printer was misaligned or had some sensitive information in a visible place. Or they'll mail it to the wrong address. So now I'm sending a mailer to everybody that has AIDS, and I sent it to the wrong people. And so now I've accidentally disclosed something that's sensitive to the wrong people. That'd be a privacy incident. So no bad actor. It's sort of it's a mixed bag between these things. How many are bad actors versus mistakes? And pretty 50-50, I think.
So do you have how they're separating social engineering from other sectors?
Yeah, right. It's usually a component, and often insurers don't really know the underlying truth. So a company, when it has a cyber incident, they're going to a couple of cyber incidents subsequently. But they won't always share all this information, because somebody knows, because you've got a lot of IT forensics after an incident to see what happened. So clearly over that course, you're trying to clean up the system, make sure whatever vulnerabilities created that breach, if they're closed off with no further backdoors or other open issues with relating to the incident that you discovered. But that information is usually not shared in any particular granularity with insurers. So sometimes it's obvious if you wire money to the wrong place, nothing fine. Social engineering, it's true that many attacks, especially the more sophisticated ones, are going to use combinations and permutations of the various exploits that are out there. So it's not always a clear demarcation.
Could you just explain a little more, maybe, for example, what are the key ranges and also are there clear liability rules with respect to what happens in incidents?
So, are there, let's do your second, well, with respect to simulation, I'll get into that in the presentation, so we'll make sure to cover that point. And are there clear rules around liability? No, there aren't. So these things are very much still in the courts, still being litigated. There's a very healthy forward. The plaintiff's bar is always out there trying to find ways to create class action lawsuits about these things. There haven't been success yet, but they're chipping away at the armor of what constitutes what damages. Like, is there a class? Are there damages? These are things that we're making progress on little bit by little bit. And there's a lot of settlements out there that are, you can proactively settle something and prevent bad precedent from going out of potentially bad precedent is, but around and get more plaintiffs, lawyers towards getting class action, and that's just here in the U.S. Obviously, there's things that resemble class action liability that are becoming possible in Europe, so it's a very complex issue. But there aren't that many huge liability settlements. So far, people are trying to pay proactively in advance to prevent there from being some reason that a third party should sue me for a lot of money. One of the biggest ones that I'm aware of was Anthem Wellpoint here in California, had a massive data breach. They tried to do everything they could, I think, and ultimately, and actually had pretty good security defenses in place, but of course they were breached nonetheless, significant breach. And I think that they ended up settling that case for $120 million. That's not including the defense costs leading up to it. That's not including all the expenses that were associated with fixing the incident, notifying people, etc. So they litigated for 3 years and ended up settling at the end for $120 million. We'll just very briefly talk through the coverages. I don't bother reading the descriptions, but again, business income and extra expenses. If you ran a store and it burns down, insurance would pay for the business income that you lost as a result of not having operations online. Similarly, cyber insurance does that in your digital business realm. Data asset protection. We're seeing more and more kind of ransomware that encrypts your data and locks it up. So sometimes people will have a cold site facility where they're storing all of their data somewhere off site. So, but it takes a lot of money and time to bring that back, get your systems back rebooted and online, and sort of all pay for those expenses. Extortion, I just mentioned. Those are all kind of first-party costs, which is to say, the affected enterprise would have to pay these things if something happens. Breach response is a little bit of a brackish area, and the reason for that is that you either do these things as a first-party cost, or you're going to get sued and they're going to tell you should have done these things. So it's kind of, I just want to have it in the middle. But with privacy liability, network security liability, people can sue you if you were collecting data the wrong way. For instance, Delta had an app that was tracking your location, but the privacy policy didn't tell you it was doing that. That's a violation of California law, so you get a privacy lawsuit for that. Network security liability, for something like that. You can sue them if there's somehow damages you. There's a ton of lawsuits out there on Equifax right now for obvious reasons. Privacy regulatory defense. The government has been fining companies at an ever greater frequency. Healthcare organizations can easily see $1 million to $5 million costs out the gate for cyber incidents or data security privacy related incidents. They can choose to defend themselves or just pay the regulators, but the government has been stepping up their cybersecurity competency so they can properly litigate and charge those fines. And then finally, media liability. These are policies that were built off sort of online exposure. So a lot of these policies will cover things like defamation, copyright infringement, anything that you get on your website that could cost someone to sue you. That's most of what I have on just a broad overview. Are there any questions here? Let's dive into some claims examples. The first one I wanted to talk about was Target. So the large breach announced Q4 of 2013. 40 million credit cards and 70 million email and phone numbers were compromised. I was visiting a friend when it happened, and immediately, like the day of, he was called by his credit card company, and there was a $2,000 charge, and they're saying, is this really you? And he's just one of 40 million credit cards that were exposed. So the path that led to the attack, which is sort of what this diagram is, was a third-party HVAC contractor who was compromised. That person had credentials into a billing and invoicing system, and they were able to skip across the network into the point-of-sale credit card system, where they installed a RAM scraping malware setup. So in essence, what it did, when you swipe your credit card, there's a moment right when you swipe it where that credit card number is not encrypted. They were able to get information from this network across into the credit card network, install malware on the point-of-sale device, and then lift the credit cards from there, save them within their network, and then basically encrypt it, and then send the information out of the network in a way that the network wasn't able to detect. And they weren't the only ones. There's a lot of POS credit card breaches. So someone mentioned Home Depot. Home Depot had a massive one of these. You have Chang. There's at least 20 or 30 really big breaches that have to do with this. And it's a very complicated problem for retailers because you have to replace the hardware to encrypt end-to-end at the swipe. And those encrypted ones are slower usually and more expensive. So you're talking about companies that have, tens of thousands of locations needing to replace physical hardware at all of them, and pretty fast because these breaches are happening everywhere, and no one's really capable of stopping them. So that was a very large incident. Let's see. Before this, the industry had very, very, you could count on one hand how many claims they had that cost more than $10 million. This claim was, how much would we say? They ended up associating $260 million in direct expenses, not including the fact that they missed their quarterly earnings by a lot. This is shopping Q4, it's like November. They missed a lot of the holiday shopping, so it ended up ousting the CEO who had other issues too. So it was a big deal. $265 million in direct expenses, offset by $100 million in cyber insurance coverage. So that starts to three of these breaches that are happening, and so it starts to three of these things, and ultimately what ends up happening, this is an image that is, anyway, Marsh is one of the three big insurance brokers, basically three globally that are doing most insurance placements of corporations. Here they're tracking across the entire market what the rate change is. So if your renewal is coming up, they tend to be 12-month policies. How much more am I going to ask for you this year as opposed to last year? Based on a flat rating basis. So say, if your company hasn't grown at all, nothing really changed about your company, how much am I going to charge you now as opposed to last year? And across the entire market, we're seeing a period where we're charging, 10, 20% more across the entire market. At that point, probably $1 billion market. I would note that this wasn't spread out evenly. The retailers were the ones getting hit, anybody that had credit card devices. So I saw programs go up 5x in price, and the retention went up 3x or 5x. For individual companies that didn't have this issue, it didn't happen to them, but they didn't quite have all the protections in place. It took time to set up end-to-end encryption, the kind of information security event management systems that help you identify people exfiltrating data, and it didn't matter. So it swept in the price tag affected everything. That's important, just stepping back, because insurance spreads the cost of risk across various entities and across time. So if the second there's incident happening, I immediately peg you back with the price, then it's doing a lesser job at spreading the exposure. This is one of the reasons why we need to create resiliency and pricing and understanding of these exposures, so that when something happens, even if it's unforeseen, we aren't taking a fearful step back and doing something like just trying to get our money back like the next renewal.
Did they ever catch the people?
Oh, I think that there were actually lots of people doing that. I'm not sure specifically with this one. I mean, the international community has actually been doing, I think, a pretty good job at trying to find where the perpetrators are, and often they're in countries where we can't necessarily do anything about it, even if we knew who the person was. But there have been many big crime rings taken down, and the international community, I think, is doing doing as good a job as they can here, given this is challenging problem. Here's a claim that hits close to home for me. The company that I wrote called Las Vegas Bank. So in February of 2014, their entire website for all of their properties globally was shut down, and an image like this was put up. The underlying issue was essentially that Sheldon Edelson, their CEO, had been caught on audio trying to tell Benjamin Netanyahu, who's still president of Israel, or prime minister or whatever, that they should proactively nuclear strike Iran before Iran gets a nuclear weapon. So these individuals, whoever did this, felt that encouraging the use of weapons of mass destruction under any condition is a crime. In order to assess their opinion, they shut down the networks. Basically, deleted all of Las Vegas Sands back-end data. This system actually put a ticker that had the name, social security number, job title, and email of the employees. So they're putting a ticker of the information they stole onto the public-facing website to explain where the locations are. Really quite a nasty incident. They have their risk manager. It goes to cyber insurance conferences and insurance prolific. So we know some information about how this unfolded, even though it's not public. They estimate that they had $100 million in direct expenses to bring their network back online, to remediate those who were affected, and they had about $50 million in insurance coverage. And this is a perfect example of what you were saying. This is a sensitive matter. It goes all the way to the top of the CEO, a person who's politically motivated. This is not an incident where insurers got very much information. So pretty common, actually, to have very little information other than clearly that something happened. All right. Next one, Sony. Sony has this is a screen that you see if you're a Sony employee and you log into your device anytime in November of 2014. This is on the lead up to the movie The Interview, which is sort of making fun of Kim Jong-un, right? And so North Korea felt that basically the publishing of this movie is somewhere between heresy and terrorism, like he's like a god or something. And so making fun of him is not okay. They shut down the corporate networks for weeks. Employees could not log into anything. They set up Slack channels and WeChat and stuff, and just do stuff on the side because their whole corporate network is completely gone. Their internal emails are released. So many things about like, oh, what did that executive say about that celebrity, all the gossip, all that stuff. It was all over the news for a long time. 50,000 records were compromised, and 4 movies that had not been released were released to the internet prior to their being actually put in theaters. So pretty serious incident. Things seem to be escalating in the cyber world with pretty popularly a nation-state attack. Again, let's see, do they have an estimate? Yes. They said this cost them zero to still release these movies and still make money from these movies. So in the net accounting of it, they thought this cost them $23 million, and that was offset by over $15 million in cyber insurance coverage. So those are some big individual events that are happening. I want to talk about accumulation events as well. So I'll talk a little bit about WannaCry, which I think is a good template for how this works. WannaCry was built off of a vulnerability in Microsoft's operating system that was called Eternal Blue. It had been stockpiled by a third-party security contractor who who probably was paid for by governmental entities. You stockpile vulnerabilities because you can use them for espionage or for the creation of cyber weapons. So if I know that there's some way to slip into a network, I might not tell anybody that I know that there's a secret door or entrance into something. I might just keep that just in case. So that's sort of what was happening until it was disclosed. So let's see. It was disclosed, and at that moment, what am I looking at? There's the vulnerability, which is the issue with the Microsoft operating system. On top of that, we need code that will exploit that vulnerability, something that's going to use this new door that we know about or whatever the situation is. So WannaCry was very lucky with a very low quality exploit created probably by North Korea for the purpose of ransomware. So they will lock up your device and then ask you to pay a couple $100, and all that money then would go back to fund whatever the perpetrator is doing with the money. In this case, so WannaCry swoops across the web, and I have stats on it. Hundreds of thousands of businesses are compromised by this. When they log in, they see something like this, telling them how much time they have, and then basically giving them a method of paying to unencrypt the data. A security researcher, kind of, I call it a gray hat, if that makes any sense. White hats are the good guys, black hats are the bad guys, but in the real world, it's not always a binary situation. A security researcher in the United Kingdom found this and actually found an off switch. We were able to ping one of these servers, and it was an off switch that was embedded into the code. So before Monday morning U.S. time, this vulnerability had been shut off from propagating, in essence, and it prevented it from hitting the U.S. But one group that it didn't prevent, I mean, Europe got hit with it, Eastern Europe, Asia got hit with it. A group in particular, if you want just like a fascinating read about what happened, is the United Kingdom NHS was hit very badly. Here's an article saying, we shut down, I forget, 20 hospitals, closed 20,000 appointments. Dollar value cost, $92 million. Dollars don't always capture the actual cost of these things. People going to the hospital, maybe they need something urgent, like the money doesn't always capture everything that's bad about what happened. But it's very significant, and it wasn't just one company. It swept across, and it hit everybody that was using the Microsoft operating system that was vulnerable. So that's what we mean when we say accumulation paths, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So the term that's really important when we're talking about software vulnerability, which is 0 days. There's a lot of complexity to this, but like I say in summary, the moment it's known that there's a vulnerability is day 0, and that moment begins a race between the the software provider who's obligated to patch that vulnerability and find a way to fix it, keep the system working, and find a way to fix it, and bad guys that want to create an exploit that leverages the vulnerability to do something bad. And then there's an issue here, which is most people don't know about the vulnerability until the patch is already issued. So there's this whole complex ecosystem of 0-day disclosures where white hats and gray hats and maybe black hats are working with companies to tell them about the vulnerability, sometimes getting prosecuted because they might have hacked to even know it was a vulnerability. Sometimes they're getting paid in the form of bug bounties as a way of thanking them for disclosing properly to the company if there was a vulnerability, rather than just creating an exploit and doing something bad with it. Very contested what the best way to handle that is. But either way, even once the software company provides a patch, people don't always implement it. And so this is kind of like a half-life of things, right? It takes people a while, January, February, March, to actually implement the patch. And until you've implemented the patch, you're still vulnerable. And so I want to give you a little bit of why that is. And we kind of call it like a house of cards, is how software runs companies. And the house of cards isn't quite in the right order. So let's see where I can start off with. Old software, like software that's really old, gives people lots of time to find vulnerabilities. The problem isn't just that it's old, it's that it's multi-layered. So look at why are healthcare entities so exposed. Because they build systems on top of systems on top of systems, there's M&A, there's old systems off of old systems. And the whole thing means that if you need to patch something, there's an insane amount of regression testing you need to do to make sure that patch isn't going to disrupt something about the system that's built. Let's see, volume of software. It's like if you wrote a novel, if I actually wrote a sentence and I said have no typos or issues in the sentence, you could probably do it. If I told you to write a novel, you couldn't write a novel without typos. Similarly, the amount of code within our software today is just enormous. It's absolutely impossible to make software that doesn't have, it's not going to have those abilities. Layer volume of contributors and open source, these things kind of go together. Many companies have been pulling open source software from GitHub and other places, and there's sort of an assumption that it's secure or that someone's been reviewing it. But it's, these open source systems are really ecosystems, so it just has to do with the health and vibrancy of the ecosystem of people relying on that code as to whether it is in fact safe or not. And so you have to be careful with that. Lots of people are contributing to these things. If somebody could contribute to open source code with a malicious intention, and then generated software, we kind of said, plugins, device drivers, extensions, program launchers. A lot of vulnerabilities actually leverage the capabilities that like an antivirus system has, because it has differing privileges in your device. You can actually take an antivirus software and then leverage it against the affected device because it has different privileges. And there's a lot of different types of code that are auto-updating or generating.
Maybe I was going to get into this, but given this system, it's like it's designed to be vulnerable. Is anybody working, any research on what an ideal or idealized system would be with the best of protections that we know now, combining them systematically, comprehensively? Anybody doing that? Not just individual, but a real model program, real model device.
I'll say I'm not explicitly familiar. I'm sure there are, because the whole ecosystem is every company is running on this stuff. We're moving to a world of cloud and cloud-based applications. There's a lot of companies that say if each cloud application is secure, and I have ways of managing keys and encryption and authenticating that you are who you say you are, or what devices you should be able to have access to. There's a whole sort of ecosystem around making that secure, as well as the cybersecurity industry broadly.
But I would think that individual companies would want to buy in and almost create an industry standard of something anticipating as best you can and trying to do, to be proactive instead of just being reactive.
Yeah.
But you're not aware of that.
I'm not aware, but I don't live in the academic world, so I'm not 100% familiar. It's not that it doesn't exist.
Not just talking academic, even an industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think all the big companies are thinking very aggressively about this. I underwrote Amazon for many years. The folks that run AWS are militant about information security. They're dead serious about it. It's an existential risk to their own corporation. Their business is run in the cloud. They like that. They're running like a third of the internet, so they are very serious about making sure that their security practices are up to date. Yes, Microsoft is becoming a business-oriented cloud company. They're thinking very aggressively about it, so I'm sure there's actually a lot there. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about this within industry. Amazon, that's part of their core business model, business purpose, right? But then there's some piracy like cryptocurrency. In the news today, there's a Chinese firm that have 2% of their cryptocurrency stolen overnight, and we just won't expect that. And so I wonder why there's a lack of gold standards in something that's essential for finance, right? And it's consumer asset classes.
Yeah. The regulatory environment for, I'll touch flat on it a little bit later, but the regulatory environment for cybersecurity is very industry specific. So like healthcare organizations, they're obliged to certain standards, utilities and energy providers, other standards. The banks are also, they have a number of standards around information security and risk management that they're obliged to. So the cryptocurrencies in particular are kind of a tricky one because usually the crypto itself is highly secure, but then you need some intermediary that has all the same exposures that a bank would have, but they don't have the resources of these big banks. So sort of thank God as of yet, the big four banks have been like very, very good here in the U.S. at preventing this stuff. But yeah, it's tricky to create a gold standard. I would say NIST has been trying very aggressively to do that, but they built a framework of thinking about the exposure. It isn't a checklist per se. It's just like, oh, there's 5 big things that you ought to be thinking about with respect to information security, privacy, data management, and then each bucket you can keep sort of getting more and more granular into what they think best practices are. And that's a method that works no matter what kind of company you are. But it isn't prescriptive. It'd be very hard to say, like, would you attest legally that you are in compliance with NIST? It's not like that yet. You know, those are ISO standards, like 2700 that you like.
Have there been recent independent audit firms that make it their business? I know you can hire hackers and that kind of thing, but are there independent firms that actually will go in and do a really no-holds-barred audit of the vulnerability?
Oh, yeah. So you can do that, like, kind of the big accounting firms. I don't mean to paint broad strokes here, but it's a little bit outside of my expertise. And you can get kind of checklist approach to just say, like, was I compliant with the ISO standard or with any particular industry standard, at which point they're just checklisting through. You can get teams that are coming into your network and they're just trying to hack you. And so then they're not saying you are in compliance or not in compliance. They're just saying, I was able to get into that database through this whole vulnerability. So in whatever flavor you're interested in, there are cybersecurity companies that will do it.
Tim mentioned, just one of the things here. The model here shouldn't be a citadel, right? It's not a citadel with the gold standard.
Right.
You have a unitary. It really depends on what your business is, what you're trying to do. So on the defense side, just entities like that that really work to re-engineer the whole DoD architecture. From a physical standpoint, where they have like air gap networks that exist, where they have very strong physical security and solve these problems. Other places, like Google, they go all the way down to the hardware stack at a deep level where they'll control absolutely everything in their data centers. From like design of chipsets and encryption on hard drives and encryption at rest, encryption in motion, encryption in use, and then pushing hard to identity management solutions for both their users and the internal staff. So I think that the model here is like the house of cards a little it's a kind of a bad metaphor in some ways for the model because it's not like people are doing this because they're dumb. Right. It's because they have different risks they're willing to accept given what they do. In some financial situations, some financial loss is perfectly acceptable. Given that you have insurance, right? And the trade-off, of course, is like your back end may cost you 10 times more if you try to harvest it. So in some cases you can think about a citadel like an AWS or GCP. In some cases you got to think about like it's like a public common space and you're just going to have like crimes happen. In some cases your attack vectors are not the hardware, it's the internal staff that you have, and you can't protect yourself. You just have to allow some damage to occur before you stop it. That's the model we have in the lab, where we actually don't have firewall, we actually just do packet monitoring. And you can do some of that for a while, and then we'll show off your IP. So, just a fiendishly wonderful topic for resilience, right? But it's really because you got to think about it in terms of like a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said.
So I'm extremely interested in this from the standpoint of the dynamics of vulnerability. Because it seems to me that, in a sense, we look at risk, but we don't necessarily think that people make themselves vulnerable and even have motivations that run in that direction. And so, the internet is a great example. People want internet connectivity. There are all kinds of new interconnections to make things easy, transactions, etc. But for every new development with respect to connectivity, it seems to me there are many, many more openings for undermining, especially by willful intent. So that to me is, the internet is exceptional in that it has, somebody once said, the internet can be attacked at any scale, from any location, with any position. Nothing in nature would evolve that to be a vulnerability. But we know.
We're attacked from any number of viruses, diseases.
Nowhere near as dynamic as this.
Is that true?
Yes, I think so. So, in any case, the issue I have is we clearly are making implicit decisions that we'd rather have the connectivity than to worry about all of these undermining potential. And I wonder, you are located in an area where you should be, you should have more information about the dynamics of vulnerability. Your industry than many other industries. And the question is, in some respects, your industry could be motivating people to accept vulnerability because they're going to be insured for it, and they'll spread the risk if they're selected out to a whole bunch of other people. And individual companies aren't necessarily motivated to do the security that would protect this follow-on organization, so you have a problem of autonomy. And I just wonder if insurance companies couldn't take on the role of policing collectively, quote, irresponsibility of their customers, and trying to push for regulations beyond individual companies to the level, and not necessarily government, but by insurers who say, we're not insurance.
Right.
We have our own standards for vulnerability, and you would see them, and we're not going to offer insurance.
Yeah. There's a lot there to chew on. I think something that we try to do, the insurance industry will need to get stronger and stronger in its own cyber competencies in order to be able to affect the kinds of things that you're talking about. Of course, from an outsider's perspective, an underwriter looking at a company, I can say if it has certain standards, yes or no, and then I can charge them more or less as a result. So I think it's a double-edged sword to say, what makes insurance create the proper incentives to create a net present value for the risk decisions you've implicitly made by the way you set up your system or whatever. And then hypothetically, if we're pricing that well, and there's an idiosyncratic difference between otherwise similar companies that has to do with how well they're taking care of their cybersecurity posture, then we're creating an incentive for them to do things that would be that are preventing unlikely but severe potential outcomes. So I think there's a role for insurance to play there, but there is that counterbalance of, but if you have insurance, then isn't it just making the harm less bad, which means you don't need to care as much about it, and something to talk about. The other one that we discussed was the insurance industry's role in preventing accumulation paths from building up. I think that's a critical area, so where we spend a lot of time on what are the accumulation paths and the dynamic of these accumulation risks, because we get into insurers' capital solvency issues around taking on these exposures. They can afford, it doesn't matter how big Anthem's breach is, or even Equifax is, they can afford it. But if there's 100 Equifaxes, it starts to be a problem. And I'll happen at once, you're going to pay all these monies out right now, that's not good for insurance balance sheets. So they're thinking very hard about the accumulation paths. And as you say, you need to know what the big vulnerabilities are, what are the fault lines that are everyone's on, are there ways of diversifying and getting people off of them? Is that charging more money if you sit on a fault line? If you're in California, if you live in San Francisco, if you want earthquake insurance, I'm sure here in Berkeley, there's fault lines right up there. It's hard to get insurance for earthquakes. And similarly, I think we're moving towards a world of if you're sitting on these internet fault lines, you can see some kind of a price difference or some sort of obligation that says, yes, you sit on a fault line, and so therefore I'm looking for certain minimum standards of things that I would expect you to do to make sure you're not one of the affected people if something happens. Those are foundational areas of what I think the role insurers are trying to solve.
I think Paul was talking about something very important in general phenomenon. When you look at any technology, all of the positive virtues have a way of becoming disbenefit.
Yeah.
And so in a way you're normalizing vulnerability, and it's almost like a vulnerability increasing system. In a way, that's not the intention.
Right.
But you have to guard against that. And I find that it's true in virtually all systems. The very thing that they deem a benefit, that they, protect and all the rest of that, has a very not so subtle way of becoming a disbenefit. It means you have to flip things on your head to say, how can the very thing that is a positive turn into its exact opposite? And not many people are inclined to do that. And I would expect the insurance industry to be particularly able to do that. So that means you have to think about in as many ways as possible how you think in the very act of trying to protect, you're actually undermining the thing you're trying to protect. It's a paradox.
So in terms of how to respond to that, I think if I go through my whole presentation, maybe we can hold that for something at the end. There's a lot to chew on there. I like it a lot. I like that topic. So keep going through. I have to talk, since I talked about WannaCry was the last sort of presentation topic, I got to talk about NotPetya. So again, the internal glue vulnerability was something that was stockpiled presumably by governmental actors, was released into the wild, and a low quality exploit, WannaCry, was created within a month. So let's see, how am I going to transition this topic? If you want to think about, NotPetya was like V2 of what would I do with that vulnerability if I added it to my belt of weapons that I can use in a cyber attack. So NotPetya was a very complex piece of software that could autonomously operate wherever it lands. It can navigate that ecosystem in a silent way. It can identify what vulnerabilities are there, what software are there, and then unfurl different weapons and exploits as it sees fit, with a goal of really shutting down larger, more complex enterprises. It is built. It includes the WannaCry, the zero-day internal glue, was included as part of the arsenal of weapons that it had available to it. It shut down, I want to say, 15 of the biggest companies. Someone mentioned they're working with the ports. Obviously, you're very familiar with NotPetya. If you work with the ports, it shut down Barcelona's port for over a month. One in India. You know, it took these ports and it put them back to like do everything by paper. None of your systems work, and that's very hard. That's very hard to do for obvious reasons. It shut down big manufacturers. So I think the U.S. White House put out a report saying they think this costs $10 billion to the global economy. If you just add up all the public enterprises that reported in their financial earnings, well over $1 billion, and like directly, obviously, it's a company that manufactures medicine, and their operation is shut down. That's one course, things of that nature. The other element of this that I wanted to point in on, someone mentioned oil and gas, and someone mentioned air gas networks earlier. So if you think about like what are the mechanics of these? So if there's a zero-day vulnerability and people know about it, and they can create exploits. But then once the exploits are in the wild, anybody can reverse engineer those exploits and then recombine them in new ways. So that's what we see here. An exploit in the wild that incorporated it into a much bigger and more complex exploit, and now it's having much bigger and more devastating consequences. And the prototype of this incident is how the now I'm going to forget the name of the vulnerability. Presumably the U.S. and Israel were the ones who created a cyber weapon for the purpose of shutting down Iran's nuclear enrichment facility. It was a facility that's underground, so deep you can't blow it up. And so and it's a totally air gas network, so how do you get in? They created a big complex piece of software that could unfold and utilize many zero-day vulnerabilities that they knew would be in the types of systems that would manage this sort of thing. And then ultimately probably got into a USB stick or something like that. It somehow made its way into the facility. This software recognized that it was in the correct facility, made the CCTV networks and all the reporting systems look like everything's okay, and then spun the generator so fast it broke everything. And so that's a very targeted, unique way of, very clever way of actually disrupting something that would have been impossible. Any other way would have been very impossible to stop this enrichment from happening. But then what did they say afterwards? So Sean McGurk, the former director of Homeland and National Cybersecurity Operations, called this as a subnet vulnerability, for instance, earlier. It's a textbook on how to attack. Because it's so autonomous, it can do all these things, and has all these tools. And that's exactly what NotPetya was. And what was NotPetya? NotPetya was a precursor to the Crimea invasion. It was part of a multi-year strategy of Russia to weaken the Ukraine by knocking out their grid, which they did many, many times. They do it in the dead of winter. They knock out the utilities. This knocks out over a third of the commercial enterprises in the Ukraine. And they're doing it to weaken the economy and make it easier to move into a hotter time. So there's a lot going on with Pestia. Again, this is an example of an accumulation path. And it's an example of so many interesting things. Because in my opinion, it's a clear military weapon that, if you imagine if it was a hot weapon, like a bomb or something, it'd be very unlikely that companies halfway around the world are affected by it. But in this case, you've got companies in Chicago knocked out for months because of something that's happening on the other side of the planet. And it wasn't just one or two, it's 10 of the very largest companies on the planet knocked out in a very serious way because of the not effective vulnerability. So where are we at? Just a little bit on claims examples, and then I'll kind of walk through a little bit about what my company does, without getting too granular. We have set up a system that looks at companies from the outside in, from the perspective of a hacker, if you will, like hacking reconnaissance, looking through the web, saying, what does this company look like from the outside? So, proverbially, we're able to see the locations of things, the interconnectivity of networks, what kinds of service providers, DNS providers, all the sorts of internet where we can look at traffic locations, so where is the traffic going, because I don't know what's in that traffic. And then I can look at the company itself. I have like a perimeter of what's happening on the internet-facing perimeter of this company. I can see things about the software they're using, if they've set up their network in a good way, or if there's vulnerabilities in the way they set up their network. And so I'm only seeing anything, when we're never hacking the company itself, classified legal and very compliant. We're never hacking them, but we're seeing what's above the surface. And then we're using that to infer what might be below. That's a very high level. And then we do that to do things like we work with the Lloyd's of London to create a report helping insurers think about what do these accumulation paths mean. We did that by writing a report that basically painted a picture of what these things look like, and then gave them a little bit of the tools that they should be thinking about for how those accumulation paths would manifest if something would happen. Two scenarios. One is a cloud service provider going down. As we know, Amazon powers a humongous percentages between Amazon, Google, and Microsoft Azure. Like, this is how companies power their business today. So if any of them were to have issues, Azure was down for 4 hours last Friday. It was a DNS misconfiguration issue. But these sorts of things happen. Amazon's been down a few times. Usually they're very public about these things and why they went down and how they fixed it. But, we've seen many incidents that take a few hours to fix. And it took much longer than that. Many companies don't buy resiliency and redundancy in their cloud processing. It costs a lot of money to buy that. And so when they're out, everyone goes down. There's also a big famous one, Dyn, D-Y-N, simply a phone book for the internet that takes web URLs and converts them into the IP address that you're actually trying to direct to. Someone sent a denial of service attack on Dyn. So Dyn's network went down, which meant unless you knew the IP address of Pinterest, you're not going to Pinterest. And it was down for 11 hours, and so it knocked out like most of the U.S. East Coast internet for 11 hours. So there's service providers out there where if something happened to them, the knock-on effects downstream could be quite large. The other one I've already talked a lot about via the WannaCry vulnerability is the software vulnerability. Obviously, it's important for software to have network attacks. It's important that everyone beyond software communication systems that communicate with each other. But when everyone's on the very same exact carbon copy version of software, it means everybody has the same vulnerability. So one can imagine vulnerabilities getting out to the web and doing something bad. So what do insurers do with this? In that we wrote out all the situations and kind of created tables to say, look at the type of company it is, look at the specific characteristics, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you calculate a loss. Of course, that company's in the business, so it's a little bit more complicated than that. We do Monte Carlo simulation, and we'll create a robust picture of what we think the company looks like, sort of multi-dimensional based on everything we saw from our iceberg shot kind of soft track at least. We use those as inputs to our model and run 10,000 simulations against it with a huge event set of all the possible cyber things that happen. then we stack rank them and say, you know, what would like a 1 in 200 year return period of that? Like, how severe is that? And kind of what happened that year? And that's the severity standard that Basel created for financial institutions. So 1 in 200 is a prominent number in the finance world for, like, you must be resilient to pay for and withstand something up to that half a percent probability. We kind of deliver it to insurers via the Stevens probability curve so they can understand what that means. I don't know if it's all standard terminology. We call it the tail exposure for what's happening in the zone in these low probability, very highly severe events.
Let me ask you about that. Do you ever do any scenario planning of a 1 in 200 to become 1 in 10? Do worst case analysis, worst case scenarios?
I am not aware of that, but I do think that's the kind of thing a forward-thinking enterprise would do, because of course, ultimately, pricing these things, I mean, it's a very dynamic environment because there's an active adversary, it's a human-created risk, right? I'm always updating and changing my network. People inside my company could have bad intentions or be negligent, and outsiders are using every new technologies as well with varying motivations for why they might want to do something. So, like, what exactly is the 1 in 1,000 law? So what exactly is 1 in 200? This is a good topic in the discussion after, but the value from this exercise isn't knowing exactly what this number is. It's knowing, in general, what are the sorts of things that are creating my severity number. And then, in general, how would I pull myself back and make that less and less likely, which I think is exactly what you're saying. I think that's like what I would advise the company to do with these numbers, not get focused myopically on the perfection of the number, but rather be thinking very aggressively about the steps you could take to make those sorts of things less likely. So I had a slide on the insurance role in catastrophic situations. You can see overall losses again. I think taking true disasters and then putting a dollar value on them is a little bit cold, obviously, like, people die, like, there's no number for that. But, like, there's one way to measure these things. Earthquakes in Japan, Katrina, Sandy, we took our 1 in 200 model events. We ran those scenarios across the population of, at least 1 million companies across the whole planet, and so we'll put 1 in 200 for themselves. And again, without getting myopically focused on the actual value, because one did that, it's like economies to scale of what an actual hurricane might look like. And the other point is that the insurance industry tends to pay quite a bit. When there's big events, the insurance industry forks out a lot of money, usually pretty fast, to help the situation. I think, Katrina, it might not be a good example of that. Maybe Sandy's a good example of that. There's a couple others that I think are interesting that I didn't put in here. I wanted to talk about, let's see, there's an amazing article on the insurance industry's role in these natural catastrophe events in sort of the founding of catastrophe modeling companies called Nature's Casino. It was the New York Times, and it sort of follows the person who's thinking about how would you securitize and create markets for these sorts of things. So as Katrina's Harvey, I think, is coming in, you can start to have people gambling on how bad it's going to be. I think with natural catastrophes, that's maybe a good thing because it's bringing a lot more capital in to help fix the situation. With cyber and human-created risks, I think there's some problems with that. It might create an incentive to create volatility, which is not what we need. But that's a great article. Other ones that are interesting, asbestos is something everyone's familiar with in the insurance industry. Asbestos is well known. Reason being, the insurance industry has spent $65 billion so far treating asbestos-related cases. They're not done yet. There's still new cases coming out. Johnson & Johnson was just sued for an asbestos, they had asbestos in baby powder, go figure, and they knew it was a problem and they didn't do anything about it. So these claims are still happening. Insurers are still paying real money on asbestos claims. Big money. The other one, 9/11, totally man-made risks, obviously, cost the insurance industry $43 billion. And until that point, insurers had never foreseen all the different types of policies being impacted that way. So it like opens, it's like if Hurricane Andrew in Florida opened insurers' eyes to say, we've got to be thinking about, wow, in Florida, we might not just have a $1 billion loss, what if we have an $11 billion loss? Here we're writing insurance for construction companies and, the property insurance for buildings and workers' compensation for all the people that are employed by companies working in these buildings. And no one could have foreseen how one terrorist event could roll up and cause that many losses. Insurers are thinking a lot about that kind of thing. And similarly, we're thinking about that kind of thing with respect to cyber exposures. To the end here. So aggregation is really a growing concern for a whole bunch of stakeholders. We talked about each industry is sort of regulated a little bit differently. The NAIC is, insurance is actually regulated at the state level, not federally. So each state has its own rules. Many of the state regulators are our customers. They actually use our products on the insurance companies themselves if they're managing their own security level. The PRA, or the Bank of England, just came out with a report. They're talking about most of my company model is cyber exposures that I've written a contract that says I will cover your cyber exposures. And that's a contract that's explicitly supposed to do that. So the big fear in the industry is if I write property insurance for a building and I say it's covered by the peril of fire, what if the peril of fire is caused by a cyber incident? And so the insurance industry is really trying to wrap its head around that because there are big limits on property programs, and no one really knows how a cyber incident could affect the underlying probabilities and correlations for companies in ways that wouldn't have been the case prior to everything being internet connected. They put out a report that basically says it's outlining the philosophy, the kinds of things they expect insurers to do without being prescriptive in the exact solution. Lloyd's I talked about, NIST, and then we already mentioned, European Commission and German regulators as well. Overwhelmingly, I would say that for the insurance industry, they're looking at it as an exposure to insurers' actual business. Insurers must have their information systems in order to conduct their business, to pay claims, to write policies, to communicate with policyholders. They also have a significant amount of sensitive information that does not belong public. So they're predominantly looking at cyber exposure from the perspective of protect your network, protect your data, make sure your systems are online. Not so much from the angle that I've been talking about, which is the risk transfer piece. They're taking on the exposure of others. So I did a report with AM Best, the regulator for insurers. They're looking at solvency of insurers to be able to withstand big incidents. And the question was, if those two Lloyd scenarios happen, and we know a little bit about the cyber marketplace, who's writing this coverage, how much are they writing it? So what if we just modeled portfolios and said, well, if I know about how many policies you sold, about what kinds of companies you're writing exposures for, then maybe I could run these scenarios and just say if a percentage of policyholder surplus, which is the gold standard in how much money do they have paying if a claim happens. We see of the top 20 markets, which I've kind of omitted their names, many of them are getting, pretty significant hits. Here mostly in that sort of lower range, but there are a handful of carriers even today that can actually experience a solvency fix circumstance just from the exposure they've taken on via their insurance contracts, not even counting their own business exposure on companies that have data and need to do things online. So I already kind of talked about this. Most of what my company is doing is modeling what we call affirmative cyber coverage. It is a word policy. It is affirmatively states that cover you for cyber incidents. So the purpose is it's an insured loss that a carrier will take on via that contract. The direct operational exposure, if an insurer has a business, that business needs to be online, if the business has lost sensitive data, can't lose that data. And then the last is called silent. It's an industry term, silent cyber. Probably you guys are most interested in because, when is cyber the thing that makes the dam burst? When is cyber the thing that makes the fire start? And how would an insurer go about protecting themselves, or at least being smart about the exposures they're taking on, and the way that the risk landscape is changing now that everything is internet connected. And so this is my last slide in terms of the cyber risk portion. I say unmeasured doesn't mean it's not present. I have kind of got PowerPoint here, so I'll go off there if I just talk on my own. All right. So Equifax was a data breach that happened that affected everybody, all their sensitive banking information, all of it. Taken. That built on an attack from the OPM. Both of these attacks, I think, were from China. It's a little bit hard to say exactly with 100% certainty where these things come from, but it looks like that's the case. So there's quite a bit of espionage going on with respect to the U.S. population sensitive information. The Marriott attack was also presumed to be from China. So they're spying on business people, where they're going, how they spend their money. The OPM attack was the company that does security clearance background checks. So now they've got a database of everybody with a security clearance and all the sensitive information about their relationship with their brother who had some stuff in the past and all that. That's the kind of stuff they're hacking and attacking. And so what are you doing with that? North Korea has done the WannaCry vulnerability. They also did an attack on the SWIFT network, which is the interbanking finance system. So it's financing North Korea is, the China attack I already mentioned. And here, Russia, we talked about attacking the Ukraine via some of these weapons as a precursor to hot war. We also don't even need to talk about the Facebook scandal, which doesn't even constitute as a security breach because they had authorized access to get all of this data. But it's an example of how you never know how the risk is going to manifest and unfold. It was just a company selling advertising. How could you know that somebody would set up a system that would harvest the data that was for advertising and then leverage it in unexpected new ways? So I think sort of a hot button for me when people say, well, I'll start to take it seriously once the costs are real. I think the costs are currently real and getting worse. Maybe I'll just try to, I don't know if it's wood fast if we...
Keep going. Yeah.
So this stuff is a little bit less cyber focused, but it's just risk stuff on the screen. So I already talked a little bit about this in terms of especially research areas. Insurers are talking about this, talking, but how do you manage this exposure? This exposure that in cyber could cause incidents that we didn't price for, these incidents to be really expensive. Example, there's a current lawsuit going on between Mondelez and Zurich. Mondelez is giant, I think they make chocolate or something, I don't know what they make. But they're outside of Chicago. They're hit with an NotPetya vulnerability. They're down for, 6 weeks, more than a month. And they've got a lawsuit with Zurich going right now over whether the war and acts of war and terrorist activity should be an exclusion to prevent paying for this. I think it's an interesting one to watch. Everybody thinks they're going to have to pay anyways. There's no precedent for exercising a war exclusion or terrorism exclusion in cyber insurance yet. And there's a lot of skepticism towards doing it at all, because actually a lot of the vulnerabilities that talked about have nation states involved. But I think Zurich is smart to do this. And the reason is because after 9/11, the U.S. government created a rule called TRIA. And TRIA says that you are obligated to offer insurance for terrorism, but the U.S. government will be a ultimate backstop against your loss. So above, I think, $30 billion or something, there's a reinsurance trigger that has the federal government paying some proportion of losses above once the industry is paid $20 billion or $30 billion. And because there's never been a circumstance where cyber incident was just called terrorism, and it needs to be called terrorism in a very specific way. Obviously, the U.S. government already associated NotPetya to Russia. It's very obviously part of a concerted attack to take over Crimea. So it depends on how you define terrorism. But I think there's specific language in how they define terrorism. That means it's very important that the government start thinking about actually calling things that they think are terrorism, because otherwise insurers will have on the hook. Some of the big rating agencies and regulators talking about that, something they think is very important. And there's no known answers to how to do that. Very complicated problem. Something else that I really like is sort of open data and intelligence. Obviously, my company is all about collecting data and then associating it to particular companies, risk-based data, associating it to companies and building out profiles of that company's exposure. I think if you're thinking about where the best risk exposure information lies, it's usually at the edge of the network, where the rubber meets the road, where the people are actually on the ground at the place, and And that's sort of where open data is coming in. I think we're seeing open data all over governmental use cases. And I think there's a means by which we enable organizations to collect that data, associate that data, and then allow people to kind of do data science and work on it is really fascinating stuff. What else did I want to say about that? You can't manage what you can't measure, right? So like if we aren't collecting and doing some kind of measuring for stuff, then that's a real problem. This is also really, really big for corporate social governance issues. So is there slavery in the company's supply chain? Are they using weird chemicals? Are they doing business in places with nefarious bad actors? These are the kinds of things that people are setting up systems like this to associate with particular companies, so that we can at least as investors know what kind of business companies are getting into, and then maybe through activism at the shareholder level or through charging different rates on their insurance or whatever, steer them in a different direction if it's something that we don't like. Just shedding light on stuff. Prediction markets, I think, are huge. This is something that's really growing. If you want to make a good estimate of the probability of something happening, you want to have people with very different perspectives triangulating their opinions. There are systems being set up to do this. Good judgment, one big one, there's a bunch. And, the U.S. government is doing quite a lot of it. So here they're saying, let's see. The intelligence community is asking us to take part. We're experimentally testing ways to crowdsource structured analytic ways to improve reasoning around, usually these things are saying, will North Korea shoot a missile that's able to go over Japan before January 2021? And then that's a test, and then people can weigh in on it, and then you can correlate the results after the event, see who's predicting well, how do you guess these things better. That's a huge thing. The Department of Homeland Security has been putting out proposals for over 2 years on how to do this for cyber simulation paths. I don't think DHS, not to say anyway, I don't think DHS is the organization that's still taking the mantle to make that happen. It's a complicated problem, but it's something people are talking a lot about. I think a lot about this because we're doing this for insurers and trying to give them a map to navigate this terrain. And the question really is, what makes for a good map? And in this case, I think what's most important is that it at whatever scale you're looking at a problem, it needs to highlight the forks and the different things you could do today or think about in order to navigate that terrain. And so this is a good example of the U.S. creates a map, and they present this map, and it has to do with our war in Afghanistan. So this is the territory we're navigating, and it's a very detailed map. It's got so many things going on, and not only so many things, but they're all very multi-dimensional. We're looking at support, conditions and beliefs, the capacity of a group, outside support. But it's a multi-dimensional, very detailed map that actually draws associations between things. So it's exactly impossible to determine how to navigate this terrain. So it's just a bad map. So what we're always thinking about doing is at whatever scale I'm looking at a problem, how do I highlight the things that are most important so you know how to navigate that terrain? Another big one that I've been thinking a lot about is how to use, there's so many consumer-based apps that are all about steering what someone's next action is, to make you click an ad or whatever. But how do we take consumer-grade actionability and then make it manifest in risk-based decisions? So a group that I really like does a good job of this. They're called ESG. They look at all the scholarly research on chemicals and so let's say chemicals, things like that. So food safety and products that consumer products. They create an app where you can scan a barcode, and then it automatically pulls up way more information than the label is legally obligated to tell you about what's in this product or the things that we think are percentages. It makes it very easy to use. And then the other thing they do is they send emails to people and they say, hey, we think you might be interested. There's an act coming up right now that we're voting on, and it's about toxic chemicals in makeup products. If you don't want toxic chemicals, say yes or no or whatever the vote is. And just click here to contact your assembly member and urge your member to support AB 495. So one button click to an email automatically dials your congressman, senator, whoever's about to make this vote. So it makes it very easy for you to tell them what it is that you'd like to do. So that's an example of really taking complex risk thoughts and then making it easy for consumers to act on it, right? I think gamification is a huge trend. I'm really into the World Health Organization and epidemic, the World Health Organization has always been working on how do you prevent pandemics from breaking out. And foundationally, a big component of it is education on the grassroots. So the second something's happening, you need to get people there who know what's up, and they need to educate everybody so they can prevent whatever the path of spreading is. And so the game was created called Pandemic. Pandemic is designed to teach people how that plays out in the real world and to give people the tools to think about these problems. And I think ultimately, it all comes down to an information security. A common paradigm is that it's just like keep it simple, stupid. Like you don't need the most complex $10 million information security system. We talked about the Target breach. Target breach, they were spending more money on information security than anybody. But their information security team was reporting to a CIO who was basically a marketing director. And it makes sense why a retailer would do that. What is their entire IT stack for but making you buy things? So it kind of makes sense, but by not having somebody with a security add-on reporting up high, even with all the advanced security stuff, it's not going to stop the problem. So I think ultimately it usually boils down to some form of education to understand how these things are, how the risks exist, how they manifest, what to look for, and then gamification is a way to do that, and also creating regimens of practice such that people are such that it's in their daily mind how to prevent these things. Oh, if I get a weird email, do I click on it? Do I forward it to somebody? And these are just daily habits that are not rocket science stuff, but that's the stuff that prevents big cyber attacks from happening. And I think it's the stuff that really most of the big problems today can be fixed with like simple stuff if people just kept it in their mind and had good hygiene about it. Let's see. Quantifying impact. There's a question we were talking a little bit earlier about the value of insurance. So it's like, does it help if I can quantify that the net present value of your exposure is $100,000 for cyber risk? Does knowing the net present value actually help anything? Or does my selling you that policy create an incentive for you not to manage that exposure? I think it's a great question that's sort of undecided right now. But I will say that I'm seeing a lot of quantifying impact in various domains. Here's an example of a charity that says, we'll convert everything into a standard unit, and then you can put in your own moral values to weigh how do you want to give money to charity. So is it more important to feed a child who's under the age of 3, to make sure they're fed so their brain can grow appropriately, or to cure someone's blindness from a totally, if not preventable, then totally fixable disease? And you can say, well, one costs $90 a year, the other costs $50. How do you normalize those two to make a decision? What else can I say about that? So I'll end on this for the role of insurance. Charles Pierce, who's sort of a founder of many insurance practices, he produced a lot of these early actuarial tables for life insurance. He said, death makes our number of risks finite and their mean results uncertain. The very idea of probability rests on the assumption that the number is infinitely great. This logically and inexorably means that our interests should not stop at our own fate, but must therefore embrace the whole community. So I think in many ways that really exemplifies what insurance is trying to do, to take any given person's exposure, probability getting hit by lightning or something is almost zero. But across the United States, somebody's getting hit by lightning. So how do we quantify and share these risks in a way that's better for everybody? And I think that's sort of what I put my mind to all the time. So with that, I'll thank everyone for their time and open the floor.
Cool. So let me check in with the people on the WebEx. If you do have a question, why don't you send me a chat and then I'll read off kind of the order that you sent in the chat. I've got most of you muted on the WebEx, so I will unmute you, and maybe we'll take a question here in the room and then transition to the WebEx. Okay. No, that's fine. I was going to have a contest. Who could raise your hand the fastest? You did raise your hand.
That just was really interesting. wonderful presentation. And I want to go back and ask you a question about and its relationship to vulnerable. It's extremely well. I want to look particularly portray extremely well the sources of uncertainty with respect to hacking and the issue of simulation path and events that can cascade, understanding what those are, and the difficulty of doing that, and also uncertainty with respect to pricing. It seems to me that your industry has all kinds of pricing errors because you actually don't know what the price point is with respect to the motivation of people to displace risk onto others by taking insurance versus individual responsibility for upgrading their own security. And so I just think all of these mean that at the same time that you have these uncertainties, you're relentlessly trying to quantify exposure, risk, as if basically you would know what the points are. And you got to write insurance. And the assumption is we got to write insurance. We got to insure people. So I just wonder whether or not it might be worthwhile to think about accepting the uncertainty and bringing it into decisions about pricing and decisions about insurance. You know, when the financial crisis hit, it seemed to me that a lot of institutions and regulators were accepting the fact that there was so much dynamic activity in financial instruments, they didn't quite understand what the hell connectivity was and what they were, but they didn't say something like, hey, if we don't understand it, we can't do it. And I just wonder if that wouldn't also be a strategy for the insurance industry to say collectively in one of those participants, you know, we don't actually understand what the vulnerabilities are. And we don't understand whether or not by insuring you, we're not increasing vulnerability by new incentives or complexity, etc. So in some of these areas, we all agree we're not insuring you because if we don't understand it, then we don't think we should be. And even requiring clawback is a problem where companies are structured so that if something happens, they can go back to writing things down on the paper. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if and I can't imagine any other industry better positioned than you people to actually think about an industry-wide strategy basically to manage vulnerability. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I often think the act of completing a cyber insurance application, and it's a process, when I was an underwriter for 6 years, the process of answering our questions began to get people thinking, okay, we think, which systems are critical? What happens if they go down? Did you have that debt plan documented? When's the last time you tested that plan? Like, oh, there's a worm site somewhere. Yeah, like, if it's warm, can you take it on right now? Or if you haven't done it in a year, maybe you can't take it on right now. Maybe it's not backed up appropriately. So we are thinking about these things, and I think sort of the idea would be idiosyncratically pricing companies, or in the instance of the credit card breaches, it becomes known to the industry after the third or fourth one, this is something that's out there. Everybody's going to get these credit card attacks. So they just brought in security consultants into insurance companies. So anytime we're interacting with a policyholder, a security consultant is in the room too. And that person is asking second and third order questions that perhaps a financial lines underwriter wasn't able to ask. Like there's a security incident management system that basically creates flags and lets you know something is anomalous activity happening on the network. But I've never managed one of those, so I don't know, oh, the sensitivity of your triggers could mean that you've got alarms going off every 10 minutes. And if that's the case, then it's totally useless. It may well not be there at all. So you need, and companies that had the right exposures will be getting half the price of those that didn't have the right exposures. And some companies that were just not looking good couldn't get insurance coverage at all. But of course, that would have to be a very particular incident. We know exactly what the vulnerability is. And so we kind of know, in that case, how do you generalize that? I presume someone in the industry is thinking about that, but I haven't thought too deeply.
What about when you don't know?
Right. I don't know. where to go with that. And it's an interesting question because risks now today are changing or man-made, and so there needs to be a role. I know, as an example, Christchurch, the town is 6 feet underneath the ground with a small house. It bursts, and the city is destroyed. The insurance industry has a question, like, the contract says we're obligated to rebuild exactly the way it was before. That's what insurance contracts always do. Not better, not worse, exactly the way it was before. But does it make sense to rebuild a town exactly on a fault? You know, so the insurance industry is, in any given circumstance, very much thinking about these sorts of issues. That's obviously retroactive as opposed to proactive. So I think it's an interesting topic to be thinking about.
I haven't seen any chat questions appear, so we will continue with questions in the room.
Let me try to pose the question a different way, okay? And preface this with some of the things that we've observed in our own research or have read about, okay? When we were studying the California ISO during the energy crisis, it was quite clear that deregulation, implementing the rules for deregulated markets at that time with those rules, actually undermined the reliability of the grid. And it became a focus such on, and I want to, this is where we're going to move, I want you to begin to focus on real time, the notion of real time. That there were, if you will, rules in place, new innovations in place, new threats imposed, which actually undermine the real-time reliability of the electricity. I'll jump to another case, stock market crash in 2010. If you read the reports on what actually caused it, hard to determine, but it was quite clearly high-frequency trading was a part of it, and it quite clearly was the case high-frequency trading actually undermined the market software because there was a point at which there was no liquidity and things started collapsing. Okay. Now I want to focus on one small piece of your presentation. Your own recognition that your own cybersecurity in the insurance industry is itself a point of vulnerability, okay, or poses vulnerability. So I understand the house of cards or whatever the proper metaphor is, but now I want to talk about real-time cybersecurity monitoring in your business and other insurance business, you know. And I want to impose that there is a day zero that happens. Okay. That would be close to my analog of real time. Day zero imposes an urgency of trying to maintain your stability of your system. Okay, whatever the reliability mandate is, you have a real time urgency to do that. It's right in front of you. My question is this: is the insurance industry that you know actually employing the better practices that it is recommending either by a checklist or so on? Or are you in fact doing a better job of it? It increases your sense of confidence as you know what to advise others.
So I'm trying to think, I have never underwritten an insurance company. When I worked as a commercial underwriter at Zurich, I wrote a third of the large health institutions, so Sutter, also like Banner Health, you go to Providence Health in Seattle. I did a lot of the big technology companies. So I've got a hat, not so much as what the tech companies, the healthcare companies, some of the big retailers are doing. And in my experience with the cyber industry or with the insurance industry, it's actually a little bit lighter from a commercial security perspective. The big thing that I will say is that it tends to be the case that they have humongous legacy system issues. The IT infrastructure of the insurers is just very old, and there's lots of M&A and stuff. It's everything about that house of cards is super true for the insurance industry. But the countervailing point is that it's an industry that is absolutely, if you think about what an insurance company is good at, it's a machine of compliance. Like that's what the whole enterprise, it's in the insurance DNA. And so I think if I was thinking about whether I would trust my data with somebody, say, a tech company or with an insurer, I think in many cases I would pick the insurer. With the caveat that I never give them my blood. But yeah, because they tend to be big compliance machines. I work now for a third party, a software company that builds software for insurers. They are security is very high on their mind. It would be very sad for a commercial insurance company to see a large data breach. It's a little different for the health organizations because what are you going to change? Are you not going to use Kaiser anymore? Or, what choice do you have? With healthcare, there's very few health insurers, very few health systems, and it's not a liquid market, it's not a free market. You're obliged to use whoever your employer is or whatever. But that's not true with most commercial insurance. So, with most commercial insurers, it would be a big problem if it was determined that.
But I have a follow-up question on that. In the financial crisis, they understood that to be 12 to 14 systematically important banking institutions, which if they collapse, would lead to the collapse of the economy. Are there 12 systematically important insurers who are vulnerable to the kinds of cybersecurity risks that you're talking about? 12, 10, 3, 23, whatever.
Honestly, I don't believe so. And the reason is because the insurers, the form of liquidity that an insurer needs, thinking someone doesn't literally steal the money out of their coffers. There's a hurricane that hits. We basically need to deliver $1 billion, 07 or what was it, San Francisco earthquake happened. Lloyd's made their market in the United States by just sending airplanes of cash to San Francisco to make the situation better. Whether their systems are online or not, it's not like, it needs to happen this exact second or else things cascade. It's just like over the course of the next 2 weeks, someone needs to make a decision to pay certain claims. I think, by and large, I'm not familiar with many insurers that would be that way. Obviously, AIG is currently considered, I believe, a systemically important financial institution. They had their hands in a lot of financial contracts and in ways that I am less familiar with, and I think kind of makes it appropriate perhaps. But most of the insurers that I'm thinking through, take information security very seriously, try to set up their networks in ways that are very compliant, and actually resilient and secure. And the cadence of the business is such that it's hard to imagine seizing up the system. But they do think a little bit about, because many of these things you have to pay a lot of claims, and a lot of the claims payments need to be, it doesn't need to happen in seconds, but it needs to happen in weeks, let's say. And if you locked up an insurer's system and a reinsurer's system, for insurance companies use reinsurers as a backstop. If you somehow prevented the repayment from the reinsurer, then you could seize up individual insurers. But again, the analysis we did with AFS said of the top 20 insurers globally, there's really only 2 or 3 who would require reinsurance in order to pay if a certain event happened, but it wouldn't have the capital to just pay themselves and then fight out that reinsurance reimbursement in the end. But that is the kind of thing we should be thinking about. Thanks.
Let me take it back on. One of the things that we've discovered is that it is very, very high risk, unintended, to trust any stakeholder evaluation of the probability of consequences of any system. Therefore, we have to look at multiple stakeholder evaluation, and more importantly, get to the assumptions why. So when we look at numbers like 1 in 200, I don't believe that. I want to know how different stakeholders, with different degrees of expertise, different perceptions, different experiences, and then there has to be a stakeholder debate. Obviously, at some point we'll have to come to some kind of resolution, but not without that kind of discussion, because I just don't believe in single expertise. Because every one of them comes with different assumptions, different experience. Now, I don't know whether you incorporate that. Because one of the things I worry about is group consensus builds too quickly, and then it becomes, lockstep. And becomes, just put in place. There's no question of it. Because these things are too done and too built on different assumptions to zero in too quickly. And I don't know whether that's incorporated. That's one of the things that I have, because we see that again and again. That need, that drive, because it's a security blanket. It's often a security blanket not for the people inside the organization, not the realities that we really face.
So I agree with all the sentiments that you conveyed. I'd say, as a company, part of our value proposition is that we have a team of white hat hackers who sit next to a team of insurance and economic risk modelers. So we have scores of people here and across the world who have set up networks to collect data across all these different companies, and then a bunch of insurance people like me. So we say, really bringing in multifunctional expertise in order to create our model. But of course, when I go to an insurer, I'm just one model. I can tell you what my 1 in 200 is. I can tell you what I think the events are that drove it, what the underlying data is that informs that decision, what assumptions is layered in, if it's expert opinion, or certainly with public reporting on certain things.
But we're just tracking the assumptions over time, and is the culture one of actively challenging one another and keeping track of what assumptions have panned out, which ones have not, and why. Can you do that?
So we do that internally. I think insurers have varying degrees of it. I think insurance companies are big, legacy, hierarchy kind of companies, and there is a lot of decision making via consensus. So I think if you're concerned around groupthink problems, that's a fair set of investments, a fair thing to be thinking about. Most of the most competent insurers that I'm familiar with are thinking about this problem using multiple models, not just ours, but other companies that do stuff like us. Of course, those models might be trained on the same or similar or correlated data, right? So that it could be that I'm giving the illusion that it's 2 data points, but actually it's 1.5 data points. You would therefore, I think, need to get stronger and stronger systems where, as I said, it's the edge of the network. People where the rubber meets the road. This is where best intelligence comes from. At an insurance company, that's the underwriter who is engaging directly with that company. I flew to Amazon every 6 months. I spent a day with their information security team. I can ask whatever questions I please. So maybe I know more about the company than the model that I bought is looking from the outside in about aspects of it, or perhaps different things. A combination of our awareness is giving us a more robust picture. I think there's varying degrees of that with respect to cyber and insurance. It's not there yet. It's also when we see that successful.
Couple of questions for you. The first one, you had one of the slides talked about just because it's unmeasured doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've had a number of discussions with various folks when it comes to doing risk assessment, and those are the things that they know. Do you have some sense of my risk portfolio? What, and it doesn't have to be a percent, but what's the magnitude of kind of the unmeasured exposure that you have? So if I'm doing my risk analysis and I do all the things I can think of, is that 50% of what's out there, or 90%, or 5%? You don't have to give percentages.
Yeah.
Is it a lot? Is it little? Should I not be worried? Kind of. Yeah, I mean, you made the comments about just because it's unmeasured doesn't mean you shouldn't account for it. So I'm just curious if you have some sense of how significant that unmeasured portion is in your portfolio.
We measure every time my company gives a measure of something, we give a coefficient of variation around what's the variability, our expected understanding of what that dispersion would look like, or how certain are we of that. That is only tracking to the known types of claims for things that we have data on. We're correlating data on claims and losses against the profiles of companies we're building, and that's what that's built on. I think any given company is in a better position to do that for themselves than an insurer would be from the outside. So a utility is going to know better than the insurance company what happens if a certain transformer goes down, right? And the transformer facility that's south of San Jose, snipers were trying to knock out certain portions of it. So, like, yeah, an insurer could have some opinion in general about, like, how energy companies should manage their network, manage the distribution, the transformer stations. I think the company knows best, like, what happens if that particular piece goes out or something like that. And I think that any given company should be thinking a lot about that. So I sold insurance to Salesforce. They don't care. If I can quantify anything for you, they don't care. If there's a hack that affects the data of Salesforce employees, that would be any company's customers, right? What data goes into Salesforce, the data about your customers and prospects. It's an existential risk for Salesforce. So they don't care what number you put on it. It's too big of an exposure. So I think any given company can think a lot about that. But insurers, it kind of comes back to that silent cyber issue. Insurers really don't know how to wrap their minds around what types of exposures might end up getting coverage and what might that loss look like for the insurance company. So there's sort of a multi-line expense. First is you put in exclusions into those policies and you hope the exclusions work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, because you really can't see what the loss is going to be, you don't know. And then the second would be, some form of internal exercise around understanding the cybersecurity posture and competency of your client for the potential correlation. So it's like, I don't know what kind of exposure writing Beacon is a bad example. I don't know what kind of exposure writing Excel Energy, or what kind of loss could Excel Energy have that might be cyber related and cause an insured loss on a non-cyber liability policy. But I do want to know, like, everything I can about how good they are at cybersecurity, so that in the instance that something does happen, they're less likely, I guess. So I don't think I answered your question very well.
Well, no, it's interesting because there seems to be the sense, I followed the routine, I've done the risk analysis, and you build in this overconfidence, right? Where the focus should really be on the uncertainties, like Paul talked about, the things that you haven't discovered yet. So if I look at the energy going into my evaluations, how much energy goes into the expected versus the unexpected, right? At minimum, it seems like you'd want to have more on looking at unexpected things than the expected. But it seems like all of the focus is on the expected, not really on the unexpected. Like your bug bounty. If companies had an internal bug bounty, so I get spams from like Wells Fargo, whoever, and I'll forward it on to Wells Fargo. I never hear back, right? So that kind of instills this culture of your input isn't valuable, it's not helping. So the hygiene that you talked about, which is we can use that as a leading indicator or precursor of things that are out there. You're walking away from that intelligence, which can help you identify these unexpected things as they occur, different than the expected.
Yeah.
It's more of a comment as opposed to a question, but it seems like a missed opportunity, and maybe that could be an area of collaboration, or how can we inject more energy and effort into looking at the unexpected side of the portfolio as opposed to all of the attention going to the expected thing.
Right. I will say, so one of our quasi-competitors, somebody does sort of same sort of stuff that my company does. My company sells our models to insurers. There's one called Coalition in San Francisco that's an MGA to kind of act as an insurer, but that means they have a direct relationship with the end client. They have set up systems where if you're a customer of theirs, you automatically are enrolled in a bug bounty, or not automatically, you're enrolled for free if you like into a bug bounty program that basically sets up incentives so that if people find things, they tell you about it. So sort of one example, I'm always looking for the proactive solution. The only other one that I've seen that's like this is insurers have a very strong culture of kind of running counterfactuals, or like saying what's in the New York Times front page today, and let me investigate it deeply how it might play out. It's retroactive. It's sort of like it's a proactive response to something that's already started because it's on the front page of the newspaper. So we see a lot of that stuff where we'll get into the loop and we'll say, wow, there's a vulnerability in a certain type of Cisco router, and it could have an implication for utility companies. So then I can say, well, from our perspective, we don't see a lot, but we do see certain things. And I think if I see this constellation of three things, I see that router, I see a messy looking network, and I see certain types of vulnerabilities, something like that, then that company is in from what we see across thousands of companies, in the highest tier of at risk in this situation. So we do have insurers who are using our software that way. It's not quite proactive because they're waiting for something to happen, but then they're using it to very quickly investigate in ways that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Interactive.
Uh,
Interactive.
yeah.
I mean, I think that would be an area where the insurance industry, it might be a good segue into the larger community, and this notion of kind of bringing forward these proactive or interactive tools and the sense-making kind of on the mapping that we're talking about, I think would be an area that would be of interest to the larger CCRM. One of the challenges and issues we have is connecting with the end user, if you will, right? So we're kind of in an academic setting, and so over the past 5 years or so, we've been looking at ways to kind of interactively engage with the community so we can kind of take some of these developing concepts and tools, make them usable, so it's not an issue of, I didn't know what to do, right? But actually getting these people in contact with these new emerging tools. Some of them are actually new, are not new. They've been around for a very long time. It's just been very difficult to get them from the academic setting to operationalize them in the field, if you will. So I think that's an opportunity moving forward. Any questions from the WebEx? I haven't seen any chats come in. Maybe we'll take one more question in the room if there is one. If not,
There's interesting thing, obviously, and interesting kind of extensions we make to this data science. There's a table where you rank the disasters and cybersecurity on there. I noticed that the Japanese disasters tend to pay less than the American ones, and I wonder whether there's a difference between countries and how it risk and benefits, right? And it's the column of percentage loss coverage. So have you come across, again, with your crowdsourcing, right? And figure out whether that differs by country.
Yeah, I mean, wow. The big thing with this, obviously, mainland Europe and the United States are companies or cultures that are very ingrained in these insurance purchasing practices. Japan is actually considered amongst the higher regions, risk-averse cultures, cultures that are very financial driven, corporate driven, if you're insurance purchase. But I mean, if you're looking at the role of insurance in addressing big catastrophes, where's the Caribbean on this list? You know what I mean? It's not insurers are very good at doing business with big corporations that have budgets for risk management that provide policies. So if you look across the world, South America has a minuscule insurance market. So they can have terrible disasters that will just never hit insurers' balance sheets because they are purchasing coverage. I don't think it's about the valuation, because you really valuation for the insured is a lot about, because it's very important that the contract bring you whole at the end of whatever happens, but not better than you were before. And that's so foundational to what makes a risk insurable and what keeps incentives aligned between the insurance company and you, because if I make you better than you were before, well then you might actually want the bad thing to happen. I'll buy you a nicer car if something happens to your car. So usually it's if it's in first, and it wipes out a town below it, rebuilding costs whatever it costs. And obviously there's scaling factors for the cost of goods, currency, cost of labor to rebuild a town or something like that. But in essence we're replacing it to the caliber that it was before. So there might be some normalization that I haven't accounted for, but I would think Japan is in line. And if I had Haiti on here, you might have to do some kind of normalization factor that I haven't taken into account, saying, rebuilding there isn't the same as rebuilding there.
Just a quick comment on that issue about not getting people better off than before. I think it was 1989 when we had the big state fire and wiped out all kinds of houses. And because of pressure from the insurance commission, a very large number of people ended up with houses that were much better and bigger than they were before. Even people who didn't have replacement insurance got replacement insurance. The company. So in that case, I guess it was the political intervention or whatever it was. It certainly allowed people to do much better because of insurance than they would otherwise. Just replace
Yeah, and regulated at the state level, so like locally, it's something that insurers will be battling with the state regulator about whether that makes sense or not. You don't want to create incentives that create bad incentives. On the other hand, you've got wildfires sweeping through our state. If I told you, wow, having a wood roof is a really bad idea because if one ember lands on it, it's on fire. Like, there are new standards for how you build roofs that are better than that. It does not make sense to rebuild that house the way it was before. It would only make sense to rebuild it in a way that's like more resilient to the known issue and still present for next year too. So I think that's not bigger. No, not bigger.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you very much. Our time has expired. Wonderful presentation, and thanks for everyone with us. And I think that's the end of our spring seminar series, so we'll pick it up again in the fall. We're going to take a summer break and recoup. So see everyone in the fall. Thank you.